Aloha and welcome to this episode 2 of BizTALK, Kapolei Chamber's BizTALk. We're excited to bring uh, an entrepreneur from West Oahu before you today to tell his story of how he started his business and his journey. My name is Kieran Polk, and I'm the Executive Director and CEO of the Kapolei Chamber of Commerce. And today we're excited to have Mario Patino with Patino Graphic Design here. He has been in business for 20 years in Makaha, and has won some awards. In fact, Mario, I think you had at the American Advertising Federation Award for logo design for the Luau Hale Ho'oloha Aloha Luau. And he's actually designed a logo for us for the Kapolei Chamber. We have a West Oahu Student Career Expo that we hold for ninth grade high school students every year, and Mario created the logo for it. So we're super excited. We're going to listen to his journey and his story, and then I'll come up in a little bit, and we can talk story about and ask some questions and do some Q&A. So anyway, thank you so much, and thank you, Mario, for being here today.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Hello, everybody. As Kieran mentioned, my name is Mario Patino. I'm the founder and creative director for Patino Graphic Design. We are located in Makaha, as far west as you can go. Um, Kind of give you guys a quick glimpse of what we do before I kind of get into the story, just so you can see, why the heck I'm up here anyway. So, I started Patino Graphic Design in 2011 when I moved out here from San Francisco. But what we normally do is anything with branding, marketing, logo design, packaging, vehicle wraps, anything in between design, we can take care of. We also do promotional products, so anything with like your logo on it printed, tents, table covers, lanyards, mugs, promotional items like swag stuff that you get like at fairs and things like that. That's all in our realm of what we normally our day to day kind of design work does. And then I'll show you guys a couple of slides of some examples of recent work that we've done. And I'll talk about these a little bit more further down. But this is the logo redesign for Camp Palehua. It was previously Camp Pendleton, I believe. It's right up the road on Palehua Road. If you guys ever have a chance to go check it out, it's a super cool place. And I'll discuss a little bit further down the importance of this logo. If we can see the next slide. This is Waianae Coast Comprehensive Health Center, which is one of our bigger clients right now. We've done a lot of marketing for them, a lot of collateral, brochures, a lot of day-to-day flyers and events and banners and stuff like that. And we just recently redesigned their entire shuttle fleet. So they had these shuttles, but they were all white, nondescript. They wanted to kind of rebrand them so they can be recognizable in the community when they go up and down. And these shuttles take patients to and from their appointments all along the Waianae Coast. So if you're ever on the freeway, you'll probably see one of these driving. They go, I believe, 24 hours a day. They're always on the road. You'll always see them. So we designed the wrap for these. It's a 3-dimensional full color wrap. So it's front, side, back. And then this mobile clinic bus, which is here on the left, that was, I believe it's one of the first mobile clinic buses on the island. And that one came to us brand new, blank, all white. So we got to design that and take it from concept to reality, and worked with installers to do the vinyl wrap and make that look really nice and pretty for the community. So that was a project that we were super proud of. And you can see these anytime you go on the west side. Next one. So one of our other clients is the Four Seasons in Ko'olina. Really, really high profile client for us. We were super excited to get this project. We designed their postcards. So anytime you check into a room, these postcards are in the little gift baskets that you get when you walk in. And we also redesigned their valet cards. So when you pull up to the valet, you get that little check, and then you get your card. We redesigned that, and the luggage tags. So the tags they put on your luggage when you check in. So that was a really fun project and really cool client to have in our portfolio. Next one here, In Peace In Peace is the Native Pacific organization, Native Hawaiian. So they do a lot of outreach for Hawaiian issues. Super important organization in the community. We do a lot of their promotional products, like I talked about earlier. So we've done tumblers, table covers, their trade show setup whenever they do tabling at events. So we work with them really closely on a bunch of different products. And right now, currently, we're actually going to be designing some vans for them. So they have these new vans that they're going to be out in the area, and we're going to be working on the design for that. So we're super excited about that. It should be a new project coming in to the streets pretty soon. The next one, this is IHS. So it's the Institute for Human Services. They're in town. They do a lot of homeless outreach. So they help people with shelter, getting people into shelters, education. They also have a program that's really cool where you can go in there and get suits and apparel, like different clothing for interviews. So a lot of people don't have like really nice clothes to wear to an interview, so that they help you out with that. So super creative ways of them kind of helping out the community. So we're like another one of our clients that we're really proud of. That we had something to kind of contribute to their cause with design work. So with them, we did their big 40th year anniversary gala at the Hawaiian Hilton Village. It was a massive like fundraising event that they did, and they had basically a bunch of tables, and we designed timelines for it. We designed all the swag and giveaway stuff for it. It was a really cool project for us to work on, and that's one of the timelines over here on the right, if you guys can see. And with them, and I'll talk about this a little bit further, but with them, we got a chance to do a lot of marketing collateral. So newspapers, magazine layouts, their newsletters. So super, super fun projects. Alani, we just recently did their directories, Disney Alani down the street. Another really high profile client for us. I'm super excited to work with them as well. And hopefully we get more projects down the road with that. There's a few things that we have lined up, which I'll kind of discuss later. But moving along, another one is Waikai, which is right down the road in Eva. I don't know if you guys have ever been there yet. Really cool spot. They have a surf pool, which you can ride. It's the only one in the state. A bunch of retail and shops and restaurants. So we've been with Waikai since the beginning. So from the ground up. And I'll discuss that one a little bit further down as well. But we've done a lot of cool stuff for them and kind of laid out their whole branding and look for all their marketing materials moving forward. So that was another fun project. And then, okay, so that kind of gives you guys an idea of what we work on. Now I'm going to kind of backtrack and tell you guys a little bit about how I ended up doing all this stuff. So I was born in Anaheim, California, right next to Disneyland, Mickey Mouse. So when I was a kid, we used to go into the yard and see all the fireworks every night. So we were like right down the street from Anaheim. And I was always surrounded by entrepreneurship and business. My parents, my mom and dad, we used to go and sell at the flea markets on the weekend. And then during the week, we would sell produce to all the lunch trucks. So we'd wake up like at 4 in the morning and then drive from Anaheim to LA, which is like 45 minutes, buy produce at the wholesale distribution centers. So lettuce, tomatoes, onions, everything. Pack all that up, drive all the way back to Anaheim, and then do our rounds to go and talk and sell the produce to all the lunch trucks. So for their daily, usage for everything that they had going on. So I was always around business. I was always around entrepreneurship. It's basically like all I knew. And every day of the week was always involved with something about selling and, business and trying to find other ways to create income for the family. So we would do that in the morning, and I'd go to school. I'd come back from school, do some homework real quick. And then in the evening, we would do the rounds of all the stores. So like the big box stores like Targets and Kmart's, and Kmart doesn't exist anymore, I think, but JCPenney's, you get the idea. This was back in the 80s, the late 1900s. So we would go to the stores and we would pick up all the cardboard from the stores that they would throw away. So we'd fill up our pickup truck with cardboard all the way as much as we can, get that cardboard, and then go and sell it at the recycling center. And that was a really good way of making money. And there's a lot of money in cardboard back then. But I say this to say that I've always known business and money management and working hard and working a Monday through Friday kind of gig. For us, it was Monday through Sunday because on the weekends we were at the flea market and that was all day. So this kind of stuff was ingrained into my being and my DNA from the beginning. Um, and all this will make sense as I go along. But I was in Anaheim till about 9 years old, and then my parents got a divorce. Super traumatizing experience, as you might experience, as you might figure. So we had a chance to, I could either stay with my dad or go with my mom, and we ended up going with my mom to San Francisco, and that's super important because that kind of put me on a different path in life. And in San Francisco, we moved in with my brother and sister, my older brother and my older sister, which I had known my whole life. They would always come and visit us during the summer in Anaheim, so I was always, really close with them anyways. So we moved to San Francisco with my stepdad, who was their dad, so they kind of rekindled their marriage and got back together. And in San Francisco with my stepdad, it was another important person that was really pivotal in my life because my stepdad was also a business owner. He was also an entrepreneur. He owned a mechanic shop in the city. And so all these people in my life have always been involved in business and in entrepreneurship and running their own operations. And it just kind of furthered that like mentality for me. So I always grew up around it. Um, so fast forward a little bit, how I got into art was kind of interesting. As a kid, I don't think I ever really like was very creative as a little kid. Like I didn't really remember drawing a lot. But in middle school, there was this commercial back then, and you guys are way too young to to know about this, but there was this commercial on TV that it had this little rabbit and this little turtle, and like the rabbit was like a little it was like a cartoon, and it said, if you can draw these two cartoons by the time this commercial's over, you might be an artist. And then it had a phone number on the bottom, and you call the number, and it was like basically like an online class before there was anything online. There was no internet back then, right? So it was a phone line class. So you call this number, and my sister was always really good at drawing. She could draw anything that she sees on TV. So we were sitting there one day and we were watching TV. So she said she's gonna call this number. So she calls, she buys the class. They send her these packets of all these like workbooks and different like assignments that you do, and you send them in on Friday, and then you get them graded back and whatnot, right? So it's like a online course type of thing. So I was always trying to steal her workbooks, and she would always shoosh me off because I was the annoying little brother. And she had all the Prismacolors, like all the fancy markers and pencils and stuff, and I could never touch any of those. So I was just always kind of trying to copy, and that's kind of how I started drawing. And I would sit there next to her while she's doing her homework, and I started drawing stuff. And one day, I had the bright idea of stealing her portfolio book and taking it to school. And I was like, I'm gonna just take her portfolio, and she had all these like, really cool drawings. So I take it to school. This is about sixth, seventh grade, and I open it up, and all these kids start rushing over, and they're like, "Whoa! Like you drew all that?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, of course, dude. Like, oh yeah, that's all my stuff." And they're like, "No, no, no." So I quickly realized the effect of like art on people and how it improves their mood and how people are so excited when you have something that's really cool, like when you draw something. Subconsciously, I kind of like took that in, right? I kind of figured all this out later in life, but as a kid, I was just like super excited that people were like, happy about all these drawings. So now I'm like, I'm kind of screwed because I'm not really good at drawing, and now everybody thinks I'm like great, so they're asking me to draw all these things for them. So I'm like, dude, I'm like forced now to like really get good at drawing. So I just like dive into like drawing and illustrating and trying to learn and copy as much as I can. Um, and this all kind of leads up to my journey in design. But so I start drawing all through high school. Like I get into high school, I'm like drawing on everything. Like back then, I don't know if you guys still have desks with wood. This is a really fancy place. So back then, I used to draw on the desk like all the time, and I'd always get in trouble for drawing. And I'd be in class, and by the time I leave my class, I got to have a whole piece like drawn on the desk. My teachers hated it, but they loved it because I was starting to get really good. And then so this is in high school. I'm still not really understanding like where I can take art. I knew that I loved art, but I didn't know anything about careers. I didn't know anything about graphic design. I've never heard the term graphic design back then. Um, the generation now is super like lucky that they have resources that they can just go on their phone and look up whatever you want. Back then it was a lot harder. You had to go to libraries. You had to like it was really difficult. So I never got exposed to anything with the arts as far as a career. I didn't know you could make money on it. I didn't know anything about it. I just knew I liked to draw and it was fun. And then in high school I started getting into skateboarding. So I was skating all the time, and San Francisco was like the epicenter of skateboarding in the '90s. Um, it's still super important, but it was the place where everybody went from all over the world to skate. So I was involved heavily into the skate scene. All my friends are skaters. All we did, and that's when I started realizing that there's a lot of art in skateboarding. And we would buy boards based on the graphics and T-shirts and all this stuff, and it just started kind of clicking in my head. I'm like, there's some way that I can use art in skating, and these guys must be making money off of this, right? It must be a job somehow. But I still didn't really understand what it was. So in high school, I get a job, and Thrasher. I'm gonna kind of fast forward a little bit. Thrasher magazine. If you guys, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Thrasher magazine. It's like the skateboard magazine. It's located in San Francisco. I had a lot of friends who worked there, so that was the place to be, right? Thrasher magazine was like the thing. If you guys go to any mall, you'll see Thrasher hoodies being sold everywhere. But um, in high school, I was able to get a job, supposedly working at Thrasher. It's like a friend of mine kind of introduced me and got me an interview. And I was like, oh man, I'm going to work at Thrasher. This is crazy. Like, this is like the perfect dream job for any like skater kid in high school, right? So I go to the interview, and it's not Thrasher. It's a place called Ermico. And this will all make sense while I'm telling this story, but it's a place called Ermico, and it's in the naval shipyards in San Francisco. It's like these old World War II like warehouses. They're all like dilapidated, but this is where Ermico, which is the company that manufactures all the skateboard items. So they make all the skateboard trucks, all the skateboard wheels. They used to print the boards there, and they had a screen print shop to print all the hoodies that you see. So I didn't know this, right? So I'm just going there, and I'm like, man, like, what is this warehouse thing? Like, this is, like, this is not skate. Like, this is not Thrasher. So I ended up getting a job there, and my job was terrible. I basically had to go and get all the aluminum trucks out of the furnaces and package them, wash them. So I had like aluminum dust all over me all the time. It was a horrible job. And I worked there from 4:30 to 12:30 at night, Monday through Friday, while still going to high school in the morning. For me, kind of going back, it wasn't that big of a deal because I was used to those like long hours as a kid. It's kind of how I grew up. So it wasn't crazy. But I used to do my homework like in between like breaks and dinner breaks and whatnot. And at Ermico, which was a very important part of my journey, I was doing all this grunt work there. But as I was working there, I started kind of wandering into all these different little factories that were around there because there was like a bunch of buildings. So I'd go into one building and be like, oh, what are you guys doing over here? And then that's when I discovered that there was a screen print shop. And that's where they're printing all the graphic tees for skating. Those Spitfire wheels, independent trucks, Thrasher magazine, Think skateboards. Like all these companies were getting all their t-shirts printed at this shop. And that just kind of blew my mind because I was like, oh, like this is how it works. This is how it's done, right? I had never seen anything like that. And I just started asking questions. So I was like super annoying kid, just asking all the supervisors and everybody who was working there like how things work, like how do you take it from here to screen to, how do you take the graphic to the screen, and like all these little pieces, right? And it just kind of amazed me, like the whole process of it. So I was learning as much as I can there. They still wouldn't let me touch anything or really do anything cool. Um, but that kind of stuck with me, and I was like, there's something here that like is these people are taking this art, putting it on t-shirts, putting it on skateboards. I don't really know what it's called. I don't know the terms. I don't know like the technology. I don't know how it all really works, but I know it's like it's happening, and it's really like interesting to me, and it's like fascinating. So fast forward, I start going off to it's time to go to college, right? So I go to college, and I always had really good grades in school because I just enjoyed school. Like all the girls were there, all my friends were there. It was just like it was fun. But I got into a few schools, and the school that I chose was UC Santa Cruz because it was further enough away from home where I had to leave and live in the dorms, and it was close enough where if I got bored, I can drive back. It was like an hour and a half from San Francisco. So I go to UC Santa Cruz. I still don't know what I'm going to do as far as a career, a major. I have no idea. Like I can make money in this, doing art. That was like the furthest thing from my mind. And when I get to Santa Cruz, I majored. The first thing I did was major in psychology. I was like, I like talking to people. Psychology is going to be cool. Psychology was not cool. It was super boring. It was really hard. I was like, nah, this isn't it. Taking all the classes and stuff. And in college, freshman year is where I met um, all my like best friends that are still my brothers to this day. We're all still super close. Talking like we all have kids now. Um, so we all met in college. So I'm going to school, and I'm not really kind of picking anything up. Nothing's really interesting me. I'm kind of just taking the regular classes, gen ed stuff. And then I was like, well, I'm gonna do Latin American studies, right? 'Cause I'm Mexican and Salvadorian, so I was like, maybe I could do something with that. Learn my culture, learn history and whatnot, and that was really interesting. A lot of books, very very hard classes, all in Spanish. Um, and I was like, yeah, I was like, this is not really like, I don't know, this is not really where I want to kind of go. So one day I come up to my buddy VJ's room, and he's on his laptop. And I walk in, I'm like, dude, let's go, like, hang out, let's go walk around, whatever. What are you doing here? Like, it's hella boring. Let's go. So he has his laptop open, and on his screen, he has this like album cover design that he's working on. And I was like, what is that? He's like, oh, I'm designing an album cover for this rapper. I was like, what? What? How? Like, how? What is this? Right? I've never seen like any software stuff or anything. So he kind of goes and starts telling me that he's on this thread, like a old what's it called? Not chat room, but an old forum, like a forum thread thing, where there's all these rappers from like all over the country, all over the world, and they're like looking for artists to design their album covers. And VJ somehow figured out Photoshop, and he like had Photoshop and Illustrator on his laptop. I'd never heard those words before in my life. And I was like, I need to learn everything about Photoshop that you can teach me. So he's like, yeah, dude. He was like, it's super easy. It's not easy. If you if you get some massive Photoshop or Illustrator, especially back then. I don't even think there was YouTube back then. Like it was all like hands. It was just the beginning stages of all this stuff. So I'm like, I need that stuff. How do I get it? So he's like, oh, bring your laptop and I'll install it on your laptop. I was like, well, all right. So I bring it up, and then he goes and installs Photoshop, Illustrator. At the time was like Adobe Flash and some other stuff, and he installed it on my laptop. I didn't pay for it, but that's terms of what is it? Terms of limitations. A long time ago. Anyways, statute of limitations. Yeah, there you go. Thank you. So I get all these programs right on my laptop, and I just start trying to figure this thing out. It's like a puzzle. And it just like opened up a whole world to me that I was unaware of. Because as an artist, I could draw, but I was never like an amazing artist, right? Like I could get by. But I had all these ideas in my head, and I could never really like put them to paper. So everything that I drew was like, for me, like it looked cool, but it wasn't really what I was envisioning. It wasn't like what I was picturing. And like if you're an artist, you kind of know what I'm talking about. Like you have these really weird kind of concepts in your head. And you can almost see the final product in your head before you even start working on it, which is really, really weird and bizarre, but only artists will kind of understand that. Um, it's kind of like the gift that we have, right? Like we see the final product of what we think it's going to look like, and then it kind of takes you into different paths. But that's another whole another topic. But anyways, so I start learning Photoshop on my own, and it just kind of opened this whole new window like to me, and it's like all these things that I had in my head, I can now kind of start putting them together on the screen, and I'm like, yo, this is something. Like I'm onto something here, right? So I start putting all my attention into designing, right? Because I still don't know the terms graphic design. So I'm putting all my like attention and focus into trying to learn this programs and, you know, just trying to be as good as I can possibly be in Photoshop and Illustrator and all this stuff, and trying to experiment with stuff, typography, and just like doing anything that I could. So that kind of got me in trouble because I started neglecting all my schoolwork. Because now that like that stuff was like I wasn't even really bothering with that academic part of school. It's just I was just so focused on this thing, and my grades started going down, and then I ended up getting kicked out of Santa Cruz, which was another very pivotal moment in my life because you know all my family. It was really embarrassing first and foremost because I had scholarships and stuff to Santa Cruz. Like I had all this like I had really good grades, so like I was supposed to finish there, and all my buddies were there. So I ended up getting kicked out of school, and now I have to move back home, which really really sucked. Because all my friends are at school partying, hanging out, and I'm back in my old room with my parents, and it's like super boring. So I'm like, I need to figure something out. So I'm still learning Photoshop. I'm getting pretty good at it. I'm trying to explore what I can do with Photoshop. And then I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to put all my attention on trying to go to school or something for this, right? So I started doing some research, and I found the Academy of Art in San Francisco. It's right downtown in the right in the middle of the city. It's in all these like different cool like office buildings. So it's a really interesting school. So I had a really great counselor who kind of put me on the path for graphic design, and that's when I discovered what graphic design was. Because I was talking to him, and I was like, I really want to do all this stuff. I was like, but I don't know like where to go. And he was like, well, you need to take all these graphic design classes. He was like, boom, 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 color theory, like all this typography, like all these things, right? I was like, yeah, that's it. So I go and I start taking classes at the Academy of Art, and that school was like the most transformational like period of my time because it just like I was like home. I was like, oh, this is it. Like this is what I've been looking for. Like I'm now in a room full of people who think like me, who are like talk like me, like they have the same kind of like aspirations, and we're all like super creative, and we're like it was just such a really cool experience for me being at the Academy of Art. And they had all these different departments, so I'd walk around and go check out like the 3D modeling school and all this stuff. And it was just like it just kind of like opened my eyes, and I'm like, this is what I need to be doing. So the unfortunate part was that Academy of Art is extremely expensive. At that time, this was like 2002 or so, and it was about $40,000 or something like that a year. It was crazy. So I'm in school. I'm loving the classes, but I'm just like, dude, I'm not gonna be able to sustain this. Like this is crazy. So I need a job just to buy supplies. So I go back to Ermico, where I was at in high school at that factory, and I go back there, and I'm like, hey, luckily the same supervisors and stuff were still there, and I still knew people there. So I show up, and I'm like, hey, I'm back from Santa Cruz. That didn't work out. I need a job. And they're like, oh, okay, well, you could come back to, we have openings in the foundry, the same place. I was like, no, 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 no. I was like, I'm a graphic designer now. Like, I need to do something in art. Just like complete like BS, right? Like, I wasn't a graphic designer. I was just studying. So I was like, I need to be involved in something with art. Like, give me something with art. Like, let me do something related to art or design or anything. So That person got me an interview with Fausto Vitello. Fausto Vitello is the owner of Thrasher magazine. He's a skateboard legend. He's the man who started like everything. Spitfire, independent wheels, all these things, right? He's the guy, he's the owner. Super scary dude, really intimidating kind of guy. He's always like he always looks pissed, right? He's always like walking around like pissed. But he's one of those people that you really want to impress, and like you really want to get on his good side, because if you do, like things will open up for you. So I get an interview in front of him. He's kind of just looking at me like who the hell is this kid, right? So I'm like, hey man, like I'm a designer. I was like, I really want to be involved in the magazine somehow. Like, is there anything that I can do? And he just looks at me. He's like, dude, everybody's a designer nowadays. I was like, oh damn. I was like, okay. And he goes, well, I have an opening. He's like, follow me. So he gets up, and we go across the street to this other warehouse from the magazine. It's like directly across the street. And I'm like, dude, this is it. Like, this is my moment. I'm gonna be working like in the magazine or something. Opens the gate. We go into the shop, and it's a body shop. And I'm like what the hell is this? So in this body shop, it's called Track Magic Racing Carts. Track Magic was a company that he started because he was a big racing fan. He had like a huge collection of cars, hot rods, everything, Ferraris, everything you can name. He had in like different warehouses and stuff. So he started Track Magic Racing Kart, which was a professional go kart race team. But these are like legit go karts, like 120 miles an hour, like 6 speed shifter carts. All the Formula One racers kind of get their start in karting. It's a huge like industry. I'd never seen it before, right? 'Cause I'm a kid from the hood. I'm like, dude, I can't afford that. Cart's like $10,000. So he's like, you're gonna be doing assembly and putting these carts together. I'm like, damn, like that's not anything to do with art or design. I'm like, all right, whatever. It was a cool place. I needed the money, so I started working there, and I started learning the industry of racing and all this stuff, meeting a bunch of people. And I would always bug Fausto every time he'd come in. Like he would walk into the shop, and he was one of those dudes. Like when he walks in, like everybody kind of tenses up because you're just like you want to be on your best like kind of behavior because he'll chew you out or anything. Every time he walks in, he always walks super fast, and he's just like straight. So I'd always run and like try to keep up with him and try to talk to him while like I'm running next to him. I'm like, Fausto, like let me design something. Is there anything I can like draw? Like give me something to do. He would always brush me off, always brush me off. And I just kept persisting. I just kept asking him because I knew like someday he was going to probably break or fire me or whatever, right? So this one day he comes in, and I'm like running behind next to him again. I'm like, Fausto, I was like, is there anything I can design? And he's like, stops, and he goes, we need a t-shirt for the race this weekend. It needs to be done by Friday so they can print overnight, and Saturday we'll pick them up, and then the race is on Sunday. And I was like, oh shit. I was like, okay. And then he like starts to walk away, and I'm just like, dude, I don't have a computer. So like I run up against it, like back to him, and like, yo, I was like, I need a computer. I don't have any like programs. And he's just like super annoyed. And he goes, well, go talk to Jim at IT. They'll set you up. I was like, all right, cool. Run across the street. I look for Jim. I'm like, Jim, Fausto sent me over here. I need a computer. Set me up with all the programs that you can. And in my head, I'm like, this is the one shot that I get till I get everything that I could possibly get, right? So I'm like, I need Photoshop, I need Illustrator, I need Dreamweaver, I need video, I need this, I need that, I need a camera, like all his like wish list of things, right? And he just kind of looking at me like, all right. He's like, well, what are you doing? I was like, well, I need to design a shirt. I was like, I'm a designer. I'm the designer now for Track Magic. I'm like totally making up stuff, right? So he's like, all right. So he goes, and I'm thinking I'm gonna get this beautiful Mac, like state of the art stuff. He goes, he comes back, and it's this big old white computer, like big old coffin thing with a big old tower. I don't know if you guys ever seen this, but it's those massive towers, super heavy, and like old school computer. I'm like, damn. I was like, oh, all right. But he got me all the programs. So I go back to Track Magic and run over there. I find this like closet that we had like old like maintenance stuff in, clear all that out. And I'm like, yo, this is gonna be like my office space. I was like, this is my office, my new office. So I clear it out. Everybody's like walking by. They're like, what are you doing? I'm like, dude, this is the design office. Like this is the design department. So I set up my computer. I was sitting down there, and I start like freaking out because I've never designed a t-shirt. and I have like a few days to do it. So I even stayed like late. I remember just staying late. Everybody left, and I would stay there and I would just tinker with stuff. And I created this cool design that I was like, yo, this is it. Come Friday morning, he walks in, and I'm just like sweating bullets because I'm like, I only had one design. I didn't have like multiple. I had one. I had one choice, one shot. And he comes in, and I run up to him again, and I'm like, yo, this is the t-shirt that I'm thinking about. He looks at it. He just kind of looks at me and looks at the shirt, and he's like, "All right, get it to Randy so you can get it printed and send him your files, and we'll pick them up on Friday." And I was like, "Oh!" I was like, "Oh shit!" Like he liked it. Like damn, because Fausto, he was one of those dudes. Like if he didn't like it, like that would have been like the end of me. Like he would have cussed me out and threw me out. And he never said like, "Oh, that looks great." That was his way of like, that was the biggest praise you'll probably ever get from that guy. Rest in peace. He passed away a few years ago, but super super cool guy because he was like a really motivational person in my life that kind of like set everything in motion. So coming back, so we get the t-shirt printed right on Monday. That Friday, I sent out the files, and I remember like sitting there, and everybody's going home, and I'm like turning off my computer, and I just kind of sat there, and I was like, holy shit! I'm a graphic designer. Like this is like it. I was like, I'm never going back. Like it's designed for forever. Like that's my career. And like I get kind of emotional because that's what happened. Like that was the last day that I had like a normal job in my eyes, right? Because from that day on, I just did design work for Track Magic. Like I didn't do any assembly, I didn't do anything else. I was just designing, and he would send me like other projects to do, and like we worked on like um, stickers and merch and hats and stuff, and it's like all these projects were coming in for me, and I'm like, dude, like I'm now like a working graphic designer. Like this is the dream. This is what I've been looking for like this whole journey, right? And it happened in this go kart shop out of all places, but that's kind of how life ends up like working sometimes. It's like you have to be open to these experiences that you might not think are going to be like the the catalyst for something else, but they end up being that, unbeknownst to you. And you just kind of have to be open to learning new experiences and just sometimes just going with that flow because you never know what that opportunity might turn into. And that's what happened to me on that case. Um, so I started working at Track Magic, and I got to design some of the graphics for the carts and all these really cool projects. And that kind of like catapulted me into like, this is my career, right? This is what I'm going to focus on. I'm going to dedicate all my time to this. This is, and I was still going to school, but I really couldn't afford it anymore. So I had to leave Academy of Art, unfortunately. And I just kind of bounced around for different community colleges and stuff because I always promised my mom that I would give her, the bachelor degree at some point. And for me, it was always a goal of mine too to finish school at some point. But I was working, and that was my dream, and that was my goal, and that was kind of like my passion. So I kept, working at that, and then got other design jobs along the way at different agencies. But I always knew that I always wanted to do my own thing at some point. Um, so I would bounce around for like community college and just take a couple classes here and there. And then I got an opportunity later on as an adult. I kept working in the design industry and like bouncing around to different like design agencies, which was really cool. I learned a lot. And I was like an actual working designer in the city, which was awesome. But I got an opportunity to kind of finish school, and I was like, I'm gonna probably take like I only had like a couple semesters left to go, to just like get my degree. And I was like, let me look into like maybe relocating or moving somewhere. And I started applying to like different colleges. And I was like, I'm just gonna move there, whatever city it is, check it out, have some fun, finish school, and then just like move back to San Francisco. Like that was the plan. It was like 1 year. So I applied to a different bunch of different schools, and I got into UH Hawaii, UH Manoa, and I had never been here to Hawaii at all. Like I've never like even came to visit, nothing. So I got into Hawaii, and I was like, let's give it a shot. Let's try it out. What's the worst that can happen? It's Hawaii, right? It's like, how bad can it be? And I get here, and it's the first time I land here. It was the first time I've ever been here. So the first 6 months, I lived in a hotel in Waikiki that was part of like student suites. I don't know if you guys still have that, but it was like the dorms of like UH. Really crappy hotel, but it was like super tiny. But I was there for 6 months. But when I left San Francisco, I was working at a design firm, and I told my boss, I was like, "Hey, I'm going to move to Hawaii. I can train somebody for you guys if you want, and then I can transition. That way, you guys aren't left out in the cold." And he said something that like another really important moment that I wasn't even expecting. He's like, "Why don't you work online?" I was like, "Oh shoot, I never thought about that." I was like, "Okay, how does that work?" He's like, "Well, just log in, and we'll talk on chat, and then we'll send you could just send files back and forth through email and stuff." I was like, "All right." So it's like remote work before remote work. So I came out here and I had a job, so I was like, "This is great." So I was working doing that, and it was going really good. They were actually still a client of mine till this day. Um, so I was here in Hawaii. I was going to school at UH, and I didn't really like the design program there. It was, I was just there just to kind of just finish it. Um, Lo and behold, I ended up meeting my future wife in class. So we started dating and stuff. And then at that time, I was starting to do like little freelance projects here and there. And I was like, you know what? I'm kind of tired of just like, doing all these little one kind of gigs, like little flyers and stuff, and the minor little projects. I was like, I'm gonna start my own thing. I was like, I think this is the perfect opportunity to kind of just take that leap of faith and just go for it. I was like, I don't really know anybody here. I'm kind of starting fresh. Um, this is it. Like, let's try this out. So that's when I came up with the idea for Patino graphic design, and I said, I'm just gonna go like full force. I'm gonna finish school, which I did. Graduated from UH, and right after I graduated from UH, I was like, I'm going full force into Patino graphic design. I didn't really know what that meant, and I was very naive about business because I had never had any like resources. Right, I'd never had interactions with business owners. I've never had like, besides my parents, right? But I've never had like organizations that I could reach out to for funding or any of these like really cool programs that are available now to a lot of business owners, um, specifically like Kapolei Chamber of Commerce, like all these like opportunities that are out there for entrepreneurs right now. Right, I never had that. I was just going at it solo and just learning and trying to figure it out as I go. And I made a lot of mistakes, but kept pushing, and then I kept going to all these little gallery events and the Kakako events and stuff like that, and just trying to meeting people and getting more projects. And I think our big breakthrough came when, and this is a few years like down the line after me just like continuously trying to struggle and like get clients. And it sounds very exciting when you're starting. You're like, I'm just gonna start my own thing. But to get to a point where it's actually making money and it's like actually a job and a career is very, very difficult. And it takes a lot of dedication and a lot of no's. And you just got to keep pounding on the door and keep trying to get clients, keep trying to get a bigger client than the last client, and just kind of steamroll this thing. And I think our big break came when we got the project for IHS, which you guys saw earlier. IHS was the Institute for Human Services, and as I mentioned, they were a homeless outreach program, big organization. They kind of found me on Instagram, actually, out of all places. So if you're a designer, make sure that your social media page and your websites and all that stuff is dialed in and it has a really good, unique look and branding and everything, because people look at that stuff and they'll contact you. And even to this day, like we get a lot of clients from Instagram and social media and stuff like that, but IHS found us through there. They brought me in for a meeting, and I was quickly like realized that I'm like way in over my head. I was like, "Yo, this is a bigger project than I thought it was gonna be. I don't know if I can handle this." But all those steps in my life have always taught me, not to kind of like say I can't do this. I got to figure out a way to do it. So we somehow, I don't know how, but up there, um, we got the gig for IHS, and we started doing all their branding, like the stuff that you guys saw earlier. We started doing a lot of their branding, and I was like over my head because it was a lot of work. So I was at the point where I was like, I need to bring somebody on. I need to hire. And hiring is probably one of the scariest things that I've done because now I'm like official, right? Like this is an official business. I have to bring somebody in. At first, I brought him in as a subcontractor, and you guys, it's really important to kind of we can spend a whole time on that, but contractor versus employee, and it gets really technical. But so we brought in subcontractors to help, and now I have I have help. So I'm like, whoa, this is really growing. Like this thing is kind of taking off, and we have all this work, and it just keeps building. And I think IHS kind of opened the doors for a lot of organizations here in Hawaii to kind of see us in a different light. And the next big project that we got was, I think, the one that kind of put us on the map was the Camp Palahua rebrand. That camp was it was an old camp, I think from the 50s or something like that. It's up the road on the mountain, and it used to be called Camp Penaltine, I believe. And it had like a big pool and like all these like dormitories and stuff that were people would go and like summer camp kind of deal. And this couple took it over and they wanted to rebrand, and they were Native Hawaiian, and they wanted to kind of change the narrative of the camp to be more focused on Native Hawaiian uh, replantation of native plant species and education and all these like really cool things, right? So they wanted to change the whole outlook of the camp to be a more of like a educational kind of campground. So on this island, relationships are everything, and pretty much anywhere you go, but especially on this island, relationships and networking is key to any business. Um, if you do good work for people, that goes a long way, and vice versa. Like if you do a bad project, like that quickly spreads among everybody, and you won't be having work for very much long. So we're super thankful that we have a really great reputation, really good networking, really good relationships with a lot of businesses, and we really hold that dear and true to like our heart. And I spend a lot of effort and a lot of time making sure that all those connections are always positive, and every interaction I have with business owners is always a positive one. So when they go out in their fields and whatnot, and our name comes up, people will say, oh, I know those guys. Those guys do good work. They do good business. Like those are trustworthy people. They'll take care of you, and that's been like our catalyst for our business. So Camp Palahua, going back to that one, we worked on that logo for a while because they had a really specific kind of vision and idea for what they wanted it to look like. Not specific, not literally of like what they wanted to look, but what they wanted it to represent. So once we finished that logo and that branding, we gave them consulting on how they should carry that logo throughout their marketing. Um, and that logo kind of just like it took off, and it had its own like life because a lot of people saw that and they recognized the brand, and they recognized who the campground was, and it was a very nostalgic kind of project for a lot of people. And that kind of opened the doors for a lot of organizations here in Hawaii to kind of start contacting us for work. And it put us in a different light. It gave us like credibility. It gave us a lot of respect, and it just kind of pushed us to that next level. Currently, I have three other designers now on staff, and including me. So there's four of us on our team. Looking to bring on somebody else for next year, and I'll kind of wrap up with our visions for that. But the Camp Alahua kind of project, like I said, just kind of pushed us to that next level, and then it started opening up clients that were more long term rather than one off clients, and that's a super important thing if you're going to go into this graphic design industry, is getting clients that are consistent. And instead of just like you design one flyer and then that's it, and then you won't hear from them, ever again. That consistent workflow is what kind of carries your business throughout, and it ensures that you're able to hire, ensures that you're able to stay busy throughout, every day. So every day, Monday through Friday, we're working. So everybody has projects, everybody has things to do, and it's just a testament to, to those kinds of clients and those like steps that we took to get to that point. Um, the next big one is the Waianae Coast Comprehensive Health Center. They are the biggest employer on the west side. So they're in Waipahu, Nanakuli, Kapolei, Waianae, and Eva, I believe. Um, they're the biggest like public health center, and they give us consistent work as well. So those kind of projects, those kind of clients are really kind of what like sustains our business as a whole. And these types of clients we wouldn't really get if all those other steps weren't in place, right? Like if our business acumen wasn't where it was at, if our relationships weren't where they're at, all these things kind of are building steps into what we have planned for the future, moving forward. And as a business owner, it's super important to think ahead, right? Because you can't just focus on what's happening now. You have to focus on 1 year ahead, 2 years ahead, 3 years ahead, like where you want to go and try to position your business into that lane. And there's going to be bumps along the road and stuff, but you have to like be able to maneuver and pivot. So for the next couple of years, I'm actually trying to position us into doing more large scale projects and also working with the education department. So we started that this year with working with the rebrand for Ke'eli Kolani Middle School in town, which used to be Central Middle School. So they had a big problem with the name, of it being called Central Middle School. They wanted to revert it back to the original name, which is Ke'eli Kolani, and just because of the history and what that name entails. So that was a super important project for us. Really kind of it's a when we deal with historical projects like that, we really take it super serious, and we do all our due diligence on the history of what that project is, because we really want to make sure that everything is culturally accurate, all the history is accurate, any imagery that we use is appropriate and sensitive to the culture. Because us not being, a Native Hawaiian company, we have to be really, really mindful about everything that we put out. And we go above and beyond everything that that we need to do as far as getting all of those little things dialed in. And then so that's kind of like the path for the future is looking into education and kind of growing our business for that. Hopefully, bringing in a couple more people, and then continue to grow. But it's been quite the journey so far. I feel like we're just getting like our legs underneath us. It's really starting to like become this thing that I kind of envisioned when I started, and I didn't really know like what it, how to kind of put it into words. But I'm super excited about what we got planned for the next few years, and I'm really proud of the whole path. Like looking back on it, like I was preparing for this speech a couple of days ago, and I was just kind of thinking about it. Like, I never really sat there and kind of like mapped it out of like how we got to this point, but it's been a lot of hard work and a lot of dedication, a lot of long hours, and like I'm now just starting to kind of like see it come to fruition, just like the little beginning tip of it. So I'm excited to see where it's going to go, 5 years or 10 years, 15 years from down the line. So thank you guys. Appreciate your time. Thank you for listening. Hopefully, it kind of sparks some things in your mind. And, if you have something that you're interested in, dive into it, explore it, experiment with it, ask as many questions and bug as many people as you can, find mentors and try to find that passion that'll keep you going. So thank you guys.
Thank you. How about we give a hand to Mario? So we're gonna sit down and talk story for a few minutes. If you have any questions, feel free to hand me over your cards, and I've got some questions for Mario. I learned some things that I didn't know about you. I didn't know you were a skateboarder. That's interesting.
Yeah, I still try. it gets it gets harder and harder every year, but we
Oh my
still go out
gosh.
there every now and then.
But it's so awesome, and I think you talked a lot about finding your passion, right? And that's the most important part
Right.
is knowing what, following what's important to you
Right.
and that spark.
Right.
I think that's one of the most namely things and no matter what you do. And so I commend that. You know, as a small business owner, you talked about the creative side, but just kind of shifting to the small business owner side of it. What is one piece of it, some of the things you love about being a small business owner? Like,
Um, well, there's a lot that comes with being a small business owner. I think the biggest thing right now for me is the freedom that it allows me on a day to day basis. Right. Um, as a business owner, a lot of your time is spent working on your business. It never stops, right? You know this. It's a 24-hour kind of thing. I'm always working, but at the same time, it allows me some freedoms that I wouldn't have if I worked in an office. For example, um, I can take off. I can go and pick up my daughter from school every morning and pick her up and drop her off. Right. I can, if I need to, I can go and be at an event like this. Right. Those are the things that those freedoms that having your own business kind of allow you. And I don't think I would be able to do that if I was working in an office. I'd just be there from 9 to 5. And if I had something coming up, I have to ask for permission, right? But those things
the
now, I
free
think, yeah, the
the
freedom. I think
freedom.
as a parent, as a family member, I think those are super valuable, and I'm just starting to see that now.
I know. I think, coming out of the pandemic, so many of us, we all worked remotely and that brought that on. But I'm with you. I worked on a solo piece before that. And there's a freedom and an autonomy about that. And it just you create your own journey through it,
Yeah,
which is awesome.
and just working for yourself. You know that the hours that you're putting in, um, they matter, and it's for your own thing, right? It's not for somebody else's gain. It's for your own gain. So
Yeah, that's awesome. So on the same token, as much as we love working for ourselves and having that part of it, there's challenges that come along, right? So, I mean, unfortunately, there's always the flip side. And I loved how you talked in your story about your challenges of getting to the point where you open your own business because it's not always easy. I mean, with every adversity, there's a seed of greater benefit. One of my favorite line quotes, Norman Vincent Peale, The Power of Positive Thinking, in case you're wondering. But there's challenges. So, namely, what are some challenges that you've encountered as a small business owner?
I think the biggest challenges for me were lack of resources and not having the knowledge to kind of reach out to programs. And nowadays there's so many like cohorts and business seminars and all these things like chambers of commerce and things like that, that I didn't have the knowledge of that before. So I think that was really hard because I didn't have like a blueprint to follow or somebody to kind of guide me and give me like directions on what to do or where to go for help or funding or any of that kind of stuff. And then I think the other big part about owning any business is the financials and the behind the scenes thing, right? Because the work is the sexy part, right? Like your store or whatever, right? Whatever you're doing, like that's the fun part.
The admin in the
But the
background.
admin and the background stuff and the paperwork and the accounting and taxes were super difficult for me to kind of figure out at the beginning because I don't have a storefront. I'm like online. I have clients on the mainland. I have clients here. It's like, how do you manage all that? CPAs, like, what does that mean? Like, see, like all these things that are super complicated, and you don't really think about those when you're starting your journey. You just want to do the work, but you don't realize that there's all this other homework right behind it, which it's there forever. But that I think that's the biggest challenge.
No, I mean it's true. I hear you. Admin is my biggest weight. I think we all have our specialties and our gifts, and that's what you've embraced yours, and that's awesome. But you just got to walk through the challenges as well. Um, So what do we need to do to support our small businesses and advocate for small business? I mean, that's another part of it too, right? A big part of what we do in the Kapolei Chamber of Commerce is advocate for the small business. We're the voice of West Oahu businesses. But what are some things that you've seen in your journey as a small business owner that we need to do a better job advocating for?
I think, and it varies from industry to industry, right? But I think one of the best things that I started doing was joining chambers and meeting different, organizations that help you with this or that, and they put you in a different light. They put you in front of audiences that you probably wouldn't have kind of interacted with. Um, I think the best thing to do for small businesses is creating that community with other businesses. For my industry, I don't have it's I'm not a brick and mortar kind of business where people walk in, right? And then they're just shopping around. Like, they have to come to me because they want a service. And those people that are coming to me for a service either have to get referred to me or they have to like find me somehow, right? I don't have a shop per se. Um, so getting in front of those people is super important for me, and that's where, you know, uh, people like you and and the commerces, and we're a part of a few of the chamber of commerces here in Hawaii, and those are super critical for us because it puts us in front of people that we need to be talking to.
There's only like 2 or 3 degrees of separation in
Yes.
Hawaii compared to other places, and it's networking and creating those relationships, right? And so that kind of shifts into another thought is, you hear, well, we know as a state that um, buying local and shopping local is so important for our economy. It's one of the things that, I think our government is really trying to focus on and direct on for sure with regenerative tourism, with so many different of these pieces. But in terms of graphic design, I know the big part of what you do, swag
Mhm.
and products that small businesses and larger businesses need. So I know you do a great job. I love that. Yeah, you had the wraps on the buses for Waianae Coast Comp, um, but even the small stuff, right? The swag. So how do you compete, or how do you face up to the big box guys?
Well, one thing that I've found out throughout this journey is not to compete with people. You just kind of, because you know, I just I don't really like to compete with other companies. What I like to do is find a lane for what we can offer, right? And what can we do different than somebody else that kind of maybe does the same thing? And for me, it's that interpersonal relationships that I build with people, with my clients, with all our customers, is that one-on-one kind of attention that we give them. I really get, like, when we work with clients, one of the best parts that the thing that I really enjoy the most about working with a new client is learning everything about their business, right? So I sit down with them and I really get to know like who they are, why they opened up this shop or this donut shop or whatever it is. Learning why they got into business in the first place, and I think that connection between me and my customers is super valuable, and I think our customers um, kind of feel that. Like, they feel that when they're working with us, they know they're going to get taken care of and they're going to have the support that they need,
And they trust you.
and they trust me.
You build
Yeah.
that trust, right?
Yeah.
That's a part of it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and that is part of relationship building is building trust, having that intimacy and sense of knowing who they are, so you can better promote their products and promote their services. And yeah, I mean, such a huge part.
Yeah, and I think another little thing that I'd like to add to that, as far as like the promotional products that you talked about, which is a big source of our revenue right now, it's in Hawaii, there's no manufacturing. It's very, very difficult to get anything made in Hawaii. We say, buy local, made in Hawaii, like all these things, right? And it's great. And we support it whenever we can. But as far as manufacturing, it's very limiting on what's really made in Hawaii. And I'm sure a lot of other places feel the same way, but all the big manufacturing, all the big factories are overseas, right? And there's just no way around that. It's just the way the world is.
We have the shipping factor.
And we have the shipping factor, which I'm kind of touching on that point is we did the due diligence to find the best products for our clients where it's not going through the mainland because that's an extra step. And I realized that if we order stuff from the mainland, at the end of the day, they're going to order from overseas anyways. So what I did was did my homework, created relationships overseas, and I was able to get connections overseas that we can now provide products and materials to our clients at a much lower rate than having to go through somebody on the mainland.
A third party.
And that shipping from the mainland to here is incredible. So these types of like positionings that I've done for our business, I think are very vital in providing to our clients, affordable rates because we know how expensive it is to live here in the first place. So those kinds of things I think I've really like kind of focused on.
And it kind of sets you apart, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it definitely that's a great,
Yeah.
great way to um, position your company. So, kind of shifting gears, let's talk creativity. I mean, you're at the end of the day, you and your team, you're artists, you're creatives. So, no matter what, we have to refuel and re-energize our creativity. So, how do you do that? What are some ways you find that you can do
Well,
that?
for me, I'm designing every day. Every single day I design something. Mostly it's projects for clients and stuff like that, right? But on my free time, I'm finding that like I pick up a design gig just for fun, right? And that kind of just keeps me sharp. And that's when you know you've kind of found like your passion. When you're doing something even though you're not getting paid for it and you could be doing something else but you're still finding, like if you're a baseball player, right? Like even on your days off you're still out there hitting balls or pitching or not. That's your passion. And I think my passion is designing and I'm always designing. Every night I design. And as far as like keeping fresh, I personally love to go back to San Francisco as much as I can. I try to go back probably every third month, as much as I'm actually leaving tomorrow. I'm going down there for the weekend. And just being around like that city vibe for me is it's where I grew up. That's it's a big part of who I am is the city, and just being around all that artwork, like
Mhm.
walking around and there's so much like art. There's so much like really cool shops, really cool bars, like all these like amazing like things, and I go back and I pick up on all these things and I try to find trends or find things that are looking really cool, things that are like new and fresh, and I bring that back to me. I bring that back with me, and all those ideas I'm able to kind of apply to our design here and for our clients, and just keep the look updated as far because it's very important in graphic design to keep a updated kind of feel and look to your design work as a designer. You don't want to be stuck doing the same layouts and the same using the same fonts and same typography and all that stuff. It just gets dated and people start you see it in all the work that you produce. So for me, making those trips and being in tune with what's going on right now and like all that kind of stuff is just it's fuel for creativity.
Yeah, we have to refuel. I agree with you, and even traveling abroad and other places too, you see how things are in other parts of the world and parts of our country, and it brings just a different lens, creative lens, and that's awesome. I Great to hear that. You know, a lot of you sharing your story. Those who are watching this biz talk will hear a lot of just great inspiration and mentoring tips and thank you for sharing your story. I mean, I know that's not an easy thing to do sometimes, but I think that's where we can all draw and go, okay, that this is um, how you do it and what I did, and either find bits and parts of that will help us in our own journeys. But if there's anything that you would share with as far as a piece of advice for someone who's an aspiring graphic designer and they want to have their own graphic design company and be an entrepreneur, what kind of advice would you give them?
First and foremost, don't do anything for free. Even when you're starting off, don't do anything for your friends for free. Ask for something, even if it's like
Trade.
even if it's trade. Like ask for something, even if it's $10, whatever. Right? Don't do anything for free. The other thing I would say, if you're just starting off, your last project you get, let's say you charge $100, your next one charge 105, and just keep pushing that line. But you also have to bring that value, right? So if you're going to charge $105 for something, make sure it's worth $105, not just, but and improve on your craft always. Always keep designing, always look for the new things that are out. Look at everything around you. Like when I'm and I think a lot of this came from, oddly enough, from skateboarding. Observation of my environment. When I was skating and in the city, you have to be mindful of everything around you, right? You have to look ahead and see if there's any cracks or any rocks. You have always cars coming. Like your mind is always looking. And I think I've kind of applied that to design and art because I'm always looking. Like I'm always observing. Like when I'm sitting here, I'm like looking at your shirt. I'm looking at the hat that you have on. Like, oh, that's kind of a cool logo. I'm looking at like his shirt over there. I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool how they did the L and the S, these kind of things, and then I bank it in my head. So I have like a insane kind of storage file. I don't even want to know what it would look like, but and then when I'm working on something, somehow I can pull like a little thing. I'm like, oh shoot. I remember back then, like when I was over there, like, walking around, I saw this really cool poster and they did this really cool thing with the image. Let me try that. And those kinds of things, like, I think are super valuable if you're starting out, and always create projects. Like, even if you don't have anything on your agenda, like when I was first starting out and I didn't have like an actual job, like a request for a job, I would redesign something. So I'd look online. I'd be like, how can I redesign this Coke bottle? Like, let me try to do a different layout for that. Like, if I were to do this poster for Nike, like, how would I have done it? And I would just do that and mock-ups of stuff. Like now you can go online and get mock-ups of like cars or whatnot, like really cool 3D stuff, and redesign that. Like I used to do that all the time, and I would do like vehicle wraps. Like I would redesign vehicle wraps for like Mountain Dew or Monster Energy, whatever, right? Just to kind of keep sharp and fine tuning those skills. It's like practice, right? Like if you go to if you're in sports, you want to practice your jump shot 1,000 times a day. It's the same thing with design, and it's always trying to find everything around you and like look for inspiration everywhere because it's all over the place. Like I was just telling Nick over there who's doing photos, I really love your shirt. I was like, that's kind of cool how he has that pattern like on the top. I was like, I've never seen that, and like that's you bank that kind of stuff.
But you're observing, and that's the key to what you do. And to be observing and paying attention. A lot of us will walk around and just walk down the street and not notice, but those are the things that'll help um, Im- embed to for the next design and the next project, right?
Yeah, it's almost like it's a weird like kind of obsession. It's kind of like a gift. It's like a gift and a curse because I'm always focusing on something. Like my wife tells me that all the time. She's like, "Why are you always looking around?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm just looking at stuff. Like I'm looking at this. I'm like, oh, that's cool."
We all need to pay more attention, right?
Yeah.
But you're finding joy in the journey. And, out of everything you shared today, I commend you for that. I think at the end of the day, that's what we all need to do is, find the joy in the journey and find the passion.
Yeah, I think one thing that I'm realizing now as I mature in age. I'm 41 years old now, and I have a child who's 3, and I have one that's on the way. Um, I think your mentality starts to change once you become a parent, and you start being a real adult. This weird stuff,
Adulting,
adulting. But
adulting.
I think one of the things that I've really kind of tapped into these last few years is really enjoying like the joy of enjoying the joy, but really appreciating that like joy of getting a new client or putting out a project. Sometimes when you start working and you start doing design work and it kind of starts, you just start cranking stuff out, and you kind of have to, but now I'm really kind of like stepping back and just being like, wow, like that's cool. Like we just got a new client last week, and we signed on the contract and everything, and it's just like I just sat there and I was like, man, like this is crazy. Like still finding that like excitement of like, wow, like somebody really hired us to do this. Like people pay me to do this kind of stuff. Like it's nuts. And I hope I never kind of lose that like that spark of just being that kid that'd be like, I can't believe I got this gig. And as big of projects that we get, and it's always that kind of like, yeah, excitement. It's
No, and you got to keep the excitement going. And I think that's it, right? Finding what you love to do and you happen to get paid for it. Like
it's the
to your
it's
point.
the it's the best. It's the
I
best.
had
It's
someone
really the
I had
best.
someone tell me that a long time ago too, and I just kind of well, thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for giving our biz talk today, and well, I'll pay attention. I know I'm gonna walk around and pay more attention and look at what people are wearing, what they're doing, and
Yeah,
it's
just
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 fun.
don't just don't be creepy about it.
Oh, anyway, no, thank you, Mario. Thank
Thank you
you.
guys. I really appreciate you guys' time. Thank you for spending
Hey,
your Friday out here.
and thank you for joining us for our second episode of Biz Talk with the Kapolei Chamber of Commerce. Until next time, ahui ho.